We don't know how do you do this? How's it gonna work? So Ken has his first-hand experience on how he actually made it happen. So from paper to reality. Ken Anderson. Ken Anderson.
I'm going to talk about enforcement. Maybe some other questions that might flow from it, but what we're talking about tonight is really willingness by a developer to actually do some things that actually didn't start out with the idea of water quality in mind. Back in about the mid-90s when we started to do Morgan Creek, we realized that we weren't selling a subdivision, we were selling a community. Part of that community on a phased development means that you have to look after the people that you've already sold to, quite apart from the people that are coming in. So how do you do that? One of the things was that we had to do a lot of maintenance, a lot of hand-holding, which isn't fun. And anything that we're talking about tonight, or today I should say, isn't fun. It's a real grind, partly because there's a lot of ignorance in the public about things like, I don't want water in my yards, as they alluded to earlier here. So 6 months after you've approved the house, you find that the splash pads are lying up against the foundation, and someone's gone in and taken the roof leaders and put them into the perimeter drains. So there's no post-development enforcement for the whole idea of using yards as a way to hold and maintain and take the peaks off those rain events, that kind of thing. So we actually were doing a lot of some of the things that they're talking about here tonight, but it was really motivated more by, it made good business sense, because if the site was tidy, we looked after the neighbors' concerns, particularly if someone came in. Very often you'll find that a second or third generation owner doesn't know what's required of them with respect to what they do to the yard after the yards are finished. So what happens is, they don't read covenants, by the way. Most of the time the lawyers don't even give them to the person. So there's a lot of ignorance out there about what their responsibilities are. And from Morgan Creek, when we moved into Grandview Heights, it was just almost coincidental that we started to look at another level of guideline enforcement, partly because these were smaller lots as opposed to bigger ones. But the main reason was it got back to, again, good business sense, because first impressions matter. You're trying to sell to a skeptical public, especially in a market like it is today. If someone comes into a site and it's generally tidy, they may not buy now, but they might remember when they are ready to buy and come back. So perception is really important. And so out of that, we actually found some of the practices that we started actually kind of flowed into what we were talking about today. So let me go and talk about how we take a purchaser from the start in the project to actually the time when he gets his house turned over and moves in. When we, and I'm sorry, I should stop and footnote here. When I talk about we, I'm talking about the land developer, not the builder. We don't build. We sell lots or we sell townhouse sites. And from there, we enforce the guidelines and the compliance on the site maintenance. So we sell off the townhouse sites, but we do follow very closely the actual guideline enforcement on the single-family homes, from the building of the home, the form and character, and the color, right through the completion of the landscaping. And how we do that is we feel that we have an obligation to tell them first and foremost what's expected. So because they have the right you need to know, we basically write it, the interim agreement, we hand them over our set of guidelines, not the ones that are registered. We have a separate set. Plus, we also have a handout that we give out to everybody who buys a lot. It's basically a two-sided, basically tells everyone what is expected on that lot and on that street, that we expect them to meet and comply with it. We also tell them what the consequences are if they don't. And to buttress that, we have a further cash compliance of $15,000 in cash, $7,500 for the lot and the building, and $7,500 for the landscape. We tie the general lot grading in with the house, and we tie the landscaping in with the drainage. So generally when they backfill, there's also potential where they'll start changing the lot grading, but also when you go to landscaping, that's the most likely time they're gonna alter the drainage where it'll impact either a neighbor or some other collateral effect, in which case, in some cases in this project, the edge of parks or detention. And when they sign the interim agreement, we deem at that point that they will have read and they will fully understand and acknowledge what's expected on the site. Now in practice that rarely happens. It starts off right immediately where we're not told when the excavation starts. The excavating contractor is never told what he's supposed to be doing. And they also have this really annoying habit of starting when it rains. So we're going to talk about the dirtiest times is excavation, post-excavation, and landscaping. And landscaping by far and away is the worst time that you'll find trying to enforce site maintenance, generally street cleanliness. We on a regular basis on our own, we basically, with occasional nudging from Surrey, we have a fairly regular street sweeping program. That's shared by all the owners on a monthly basis, and it's based on an annual. We add up how much it costs at the end of the year. We determine how many months they've been in construction, and basically we send them a bill. If they don't pay it, we simply take it out of their cash compliance. Cash compliance is the ultimate hammer. If you don't have the money, you are simply wasting your time running around trying to plead, cajole, threaten. Every time you send them a bill, most of them really smarten up really quick. And with the exception of one builder, we've never really had a lot of problems in that project in the year and a half that we've started. So I've been actually pleasantly surprised. But again, it gets back to telling them up front what's expected, because usually what will happen is they'll say, we weren't told, we didn't know. But we don't waste our time trying to chase excavating contractors or landscapers. We put the onus on the homeowner or the builder to do that, and we simply put the pressure on the homeowner and builder if they don't. It requires a lot of hands-on. It's not fun. It requires almost a daily presence out there. Even if you're driving around and they notice that you're watching, that in itself will also help an awful lot. But the main thing that motivates us is that if we start this project and we get these initial streets built, the projects tend to sell themselves, because a purchaser who's coming in looking at on a possibility of buying, they'll end up thinking, well, if that's what this part of the project looks like, I can expect probably much the same. So again, it's consistent enforcement, but you'll still have to look after the people that are already there. They do suffer a certain amount simply because of all of the activity that's going around on the lots that aren't currently built on. And you have to understand the trades generally don't care, and it's just, again, going back and going back and going back. And that's really all there is to it. It's just a willingness to do it, and being consistent right to the end of the project. It helps if you've got a phased project. The smaller ones, the infills, are probably less likely to be able to be enforced quite as well, simply because a lot of times a 5 or 10 lotter, the developer wholesales it to a builder and he's gone. So that's an aspect that is probably really weak in what we're trying to apply, because we're there right to the bitter end. I could probably go on more and more about what examples, but I think generally speaking, if you let them know and they know you're gonna take their money and use it, you can go an awful long way to kind of accomplishing what you want from a developer's point of view, and what I guess ultimately the city wants.